Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever felt like life has shattered into pieces right before your eyes? Have you ever found yourself asking God, why is this happening to me? Sometimes we mistake our greatest trials for God's absence, but in reality, they are proof of His presence. Sometimes God breaks your heart, not to destroy you, but to deliver you, not to abandon you, but to align you with His greater purpose. When God begins to move in your life, He does not always add first. Sometimes He subtracts. He does not always build up immediately. Sometimes He tears down. There are moments when what you have built with your own hands, what you have invested your heart in, what you thought would last forever, begins to fall apart. And in those moments, it is easy to question, easy to wonder if God has abandoned you, if you are being punished, if somehow you took a wrong turn. But what if the very thing you are losing is the weight that was keeping you from rising? What if the thing that is breaking is what was holding you back? What if God is not punishing you, but preparing you? There are times when what you have is not bad, but it is not best. You prayed for stability, but God wants to give you expansion. You asked for comfort, but God is calling you to something greater. You settled in a place that was meant to be temporary, and now God is shaking it to remind you that this is not your final destination. He is not destroying you. He is rebuilding you. He is not forsaking you. He is reshaping you. But before He can build something new, He has to remove what no longer serves your destiny. You see, when a builder constructs a new structure, he does not build on weak foundations. He first clears the land. He removes everything that could compromise the strength of what is coming next. Some things in your life were never meant to last forever. Some relationships were seasonal. Some opportunities were temporary. Some places were stepping stones, not destinations. And when you try to hold on to what God is trying to remove, you delay the very thing He is trying to release. Think about Abraham. He loved his home. He loved his family. He loved the life he had built. But God told him to leave everything he knew, to walk away from the familiar and step into the unknown. Why? Because what was comfortable for Abraham was too small for what God wanted to do through him. His future required separation. His calling demanded transition. If he had stayed, he would have been safe, but he would have never stepped into the promise. There are some things you are holding on to that are keeping you safe, but are robbing you of destiny. There are some people in your life who are good for where you are, but they cannot go where you are headed. And if God is shaking something, if He is removing something, it is only because He is about to release something greater. When a tree is pruned, branches are cut off. And if you did not understand the process, you would think it was being destroyed. But in reality, the pruning is necessary for growth. The branches that are removed are not necessarily dead. They are just not needed for the next season. They are taking up space. They are draining energy. And the gardener knows that in order for the tree to flourish, some things have to go. The same is true in your life. Some losses are not really losses. They are preparations. Some doors do not close because you failed, but because your future cannot fit where you are trying to stay. It is painful to lose what you thought you needed. It is hard to watch something you love be taken away, but trust the process. Trust the hands of the master builder. He is not breaking you, He is making you. He is not setting you back, He is setting you up. The things you cried over, the things you begged Him to keep, the things you thought you could not live without, one day you will look back and thank Him for removing them. Because what He is building in you, what He is preparing for you, is so much greater than what you thought you lost. Keep walking. Keep trusting. Keep believing. Because He who removes is the same one who restores. There are moments in life when the door you prayed for stays shut. The opportunity you waited for never comes. The person you depended on walks away. The place you called home no longer welcomes you. And in those moments, it is easy to feel abandoned, forgotten, and even betrayed. You question why things are not working the way you expected. You wonder if you missed your chance, if you made a mistake, if somehow you are being punished. But what if the very thing that feels like rejection is actually divine redirection? What if what you see as loss is really protection? What if the door that closed was not meant to limit you, but to guide you? So often people become trapped in places they were never meant to stay. They settle for less because it feels safe. They remain in relationships that have expired. They hold on to jobs that have no future. And when life forces them out, they mourn the loss instead of recognizing the hand of God. But when God allows something to be taken away, it is never to leave you empty. It is to make room for something greater. When He allows people to reject you, it is because they are not assigned to your destiny. When He allows opportunities to slip away, it is because they would have limited your growth. You may not understand it now, but what looks like a setback is really a setup for something beyond what you imagined. Every time you face rejection, it is a sign that you were not meant to stay where you are. It is an indication that God has something different, something higher, something better in store. The problem is, many people become so focused on what they lost that they fail to see what is ahead. They cry over what didn't happen instead of preparing for what is coming. They hold onto what was instead of embracing what is next. And in doing so, they miss the opportunity hidden in the redirection. Look at Joseph. He was rejected by his own brothers, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, falsely accused and imprisoned. Every step of his journey seemed unfair. Every moment of his suffering seemed undeserved. But what looked like rejection was actually positioning. Had his brothers not betrayed him, he would have never made it to Egypt. Had he not been accused, he would have never entered the palace. What others meant for evil, God used for good. The very rejection that could have broken him was the vehicle that carried him into purpose. Sometimes what you think is holding you back is actually releasing you. The relationship that ended was not a loss, it was a rescue. The job that let you go was not a failure, it was an open door to something greater. The people who walked away were not meant to stay. Stop fighting for what God is removing. Stop chasing after what He has already released you from. Stop trying to prove yourself to those who cannot see your worth. When something leaves your life, trust that it is part of the process. The hardest thing to accept is that rejection often comes from places you least expect. The ones you help the most may be the first to turn their backs. The opportunities you worked hardest for may be the ones denied to you. But do not let it shake your faith. Do not let it make you bitter. Because every no from man is making room for a greater yes from God. Every closed door is an answered prayer in disguise. Every disappointment is divine direction. The challenge is to not get stuck in frustration, not to allow temporary pain to make you lose sight of eternal purpose. If you only knew what was on the other side of your rejection, you would not be crying, you would be celebrating. If you saw the doors that were about to open, you would not be mourning, you would be praising. If you understood the favor that is waiting, you would not be discouraged, you would be preparing. Because what God has for you will never require you to beg to belong. What is assigned to your life will, and what is ahead is so much greater than what is behind. Keep moving forward, keep trusting. Because what looks like rejection today is the very thing leading you to your destiny. There are seasons in life when everything you touch seems to break, when every step forward feels like 2 steps back, when the very things you prayed for seem to slip through your hands. The weight of disappointment, the sting of betrayal, the loneliness of the journey. All of it can make you wonder if you are even on the right path. You look around and it seems as if others are moving ahead while you are stuck in the struggle. You ask yourself, why does it have to be this hard? Why does it have to hurt this much? But what if the pain you are feeling is not working against you, but working for you? What if the very thing you are trying to escape is the thing that is shaping you for what is next? Pain is never wasted. It is a tool in the hands of the Creator, a refining fire that purifies, a chisel that carves away everything that does not belong to your destiny. Diamonds are formed under pressure. Gold is refined in fire, and oil is only released when the olive is crushed. There is no promotion without preparation, and there is no preparation without process. The greater the destiny, the greater the process. And the process is never comfortable. It stretches you, it breaks you. It exposes the weaknesses in you that comfort could never reveal. Many people pray for elevation, but they resist the process that comes with it. They want the crown without the crushing, the victory without the battle, the success without the struggle. But every great leader, every person who has ever done something significant had to go through a season of breaking. The delay you are experiencing is not denial, it is development. The hardship is not meant to destroy you, it is meant to equip you. Because where you are going, your old mindset cannot go with you. Where you are headed, your insecurities cannot follow. The weight of your calling requires strength that can only come through struggle. Think about Joseph. He had a dream of greatness, but before he ever reached the palace, he had to endure the pit. Before he was honored, he was hated. Before he was promoted, he was persecuted. But every betrayal, every false accusation, every long night in prison was preparing him for what he was destined to become. Had he gone straight from his father's house to Pharaoh's palace, he would not have been ready. The pain of his journey was not punishment, it was preparation. It was in the prison that he learned wisdom. It was in the suffering that he developed the strength to lead. If he had not gone through the process, he would not have been equipped for the position. Too many people give up in the process because they mistake preparation for punishment. They think because life is hard, they must have taken the wrong turn. But the truth is, the struggle is often the clearest sign that you are on the right path. The enemy does not attack what is not a threat. The pressure you are feeling is proof that there is something inside of you worth fighting for. And if you can endure the process, if you can hold on through the pain, if you refuse to quit when it gets hard, you will come out stronger, wiser, and ready for the promotion that is waiting for you. There is no easy way to greatness. Every shortcut leads to a dead end. Every time you try to bypass the process, you delay the promise. But if you embrace the season you are in, if you trust that the breaking is making you better, if you refuse to be discouraged by what you see now, you will walk into a future that is greater than anything you could have imagined. The pain you are feeling is not in vain. It is producing something in you that comfort never could. Stay the course. Keep pushing forward, because this is not the end. This is the preparation for something far greater. There are moments in life when everything seems to shatter. The dreams you held so tightly slip through your fingers. The relationships you thought would last forever fall apart. The security you built crumbles beneath your feet. And in those moments, it is easy to believe that life is unfair, that the breaking is a sign of failure, that you have lost something you will never recover. But what if the breaking is not the end? What if the very thing that seems to be destroying you is actually developing you? What if the breaking is not a curse, but a process? Because nothing truly grows until it has been broken. A seed, no matter how full of potential, remains lifeless until it is planted in the ground. It must be buried in darkness, hidden beneath the soil, where no one can see it. But even then, nothing happens until the shell of that seed is broken. Only in the breaking can new life emerge. Only in the breaking can the roots begin to take hold and the stem begin to rise. The breaking does not destroy the seed. It releases its destiny. In the same way, there are things inside of you that can only be unlocked through the breaking. There are levels of growth you will never reach until something in you is shattered. The breaking is not punishment. Too many people pray for increase but resist the breaking that comes before it. They want to grow but do not want to be stretched. They want to rise but do not want to be shaken. But nothing great is ever built without first being broken. A tree must lose its leaves before new ones can come. A caterpillar must be confined in a cocoon before it can fly. And in the same way, sometimes you have to lose what is familiar to step into what is greater. The comfort you are holding on to may be the very thing limiting your capacity. The season you are trying to stay in may be too small for what God wants to do next. The breaking is not meant to destroy you. It is meant to enlarge you. There are times when breaking feels like betrayal. The people you trusted the most turn their backs on you. The support you depended on is no longer there. And it can feel like you are standing alone in a place of uncertainty. But even in that breaking, there is growth. Every painful moment is shaping you. Every disappointment is refining you. Every loss is making room for something greater. And if you can endure the breaking, you will step into a level of strength, wisdom, and clarity you never knew you had. Think about the process of refining gold. It is placed in the fire, and under intense heat, all the impurities rise to the surface. The gold is not destroyed, it is purified. The breaking you are experiencing is the fire that is removing everything in you that cannot go to the next level. It is burning away fear, doubt, insecurity, and anything that would limit you. Because where you are headed, you cannot carry the weight of the past. You cannot bring old mindsets into a new season. The breaking is not just about what you are losing. It is about what you are becoming. It is easy to resist the breaking, to try to hold everything together, to fight against what is being removed. But what if the very thing you are trying to hold on to is the thing that is keeping you stuck? What if the comfort you are clinging to is blocking the breakthrough you have been praying for? The breaking is painful, but it is necessary. Because in every season of breaking, there is hidden within it a season of growth. And when you come out on the other side, you will not just be healed. You will be stronger, wiser, and ready for everything that was meant for you. Keep trusting. Keep pushing forward. Because the breaking is not the end. It is the beginning of something greater. Tears have a language that words cannot speak. They carry the weight of pain, the depth of loss, the cries of a broken heart. They fall in silence, yet they speak volumes. In moments of deep sorrow, in seasons of waiting, in times of disappointment, tears become the only expression of what the soul is feeling. But every tear that falls is seen. Every drop that touches the ground carries meaning. Nothing is wasted in the hands of the one who created you. There are moments when it feels like the pain is too much to bear. When the weight of what you are going through seems unbearable. When the dreams you once had feel so far away and the prayers you have prayed seem unanswered. You hold on as long as you can, but the pain becomes overwhelming and the only thing left to do is weep. And in those moments, it can feel like you are alone, like no one understands, like no one sees. But your tears are not ignored. They are not forgotten. They are collected. They are accounted for. They are proof that something is being worked out in your life, even when you cannot see it. Tears have a way of cleansing the soul. They wash away the frustration. They release the weight of burdens carried for too long. They break the walls that have been built around the heart. And though it may feel like breaking, it is actually healing, because there are some things that can only be released through tears. some wounds that only tears can soothe, some emotions that only tears can express. But the beauty of it all is that they are never in vain. What you weep over today will become the testimony you stand on tomorrow. Look at Joseph, betrayed by his own brothers, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, accused and imprisoned. He must have wept in the silence of the night, questioning why his life had turned out the way it did. But the very thing that caused him to weep was the thing that positioned him for greatness. The pain that brought him to his knees was the same pain that prepared him for the palace. The tears he cried in the prison were the same tears that strengthened him to rule. What looked like suffering was actually shaping him. What looked like loss was actually setting him up for something greater. There are things in life that you will only understand in hindsight. In the moment, it feels like rejection. But later, you realize it was protection. In the moment, it feels like loss. But later, you see it was preparation. What you are crying over now, you will one day thank God for, because every tear is watering something in your future. Every tear is making way for something you cannot yet see. Every tear is bringing you closer to what was meant for you all along. The problem is many people allow their tears to make them bitter instead of better. They cry, but they do not release. They weep, but they do not grow. They let their pain define them instead of refine them. But when you understand that nothing is wasted, when you realize that every tear is seen, you will not weep in hopelessness. You will weep with purpose. You will understand that even in your brokenness, something is being birthed. Even in your sorrow, something is shifting. Even in your waiting, something is working. One day you will look back at the things that broke you and you will realize they built you. You will remember the nights you cried yourself to sleep, and you will see that those very tears were the reason you are standing strong today. You will understand that your tears were never wasted. They were an investment in your destiny. So keep moving forward, keep trusting, and know that not one tear has been shed in vain. Because what is ahead is greater than what you have left behind. There are moments in life when the heavens seem quiet, when no matter how much you pray, no matter how desperately you cry out, it feels as if there is no response. You search for signs, you look for direction, but all you hear is silence. And in that silence, doubt begins to creep in. You start to wonder if your prayers have been ignored, if you've been forgotten, if maybe God has withdrawn his presence from you. But what if the silence is not abandonment? What if the silence is not rejection, but preparation? A teacher is always silent during a test. It is not because the teacher is absent, but because the student is being evaluated. And there are seasons in life when you are being tested, when everything you have learned is being put to work. In those seasons, it is not that God has left you. It is that he is watching to see if you will trust him, even when you cannot hear him. If you will walk by faith and not by sight. If you will hold onto his promises even when nothing around you makes sense. When a seed is planted in the ground, it is buried in darkness. There is no light, no sign of movement, no evidence that anything is happening. But deep beneath the soil, something is taking place. Roots are growing. Strength is being developed. The foundation is being laid for what is to come. The seed does not fight the darkness. It surrenders to the process. Because in time, the silence will break and what was hidden will begin to rise. The same is true for your life. When God is silent, it does not mean he is inactive. It does not mean he has turned away. It means he is working behind the scenes, preparing something that cannot yet be seen. There are people who walked through seasons of silence and came out transformed. Joseph was given a dream of greatness. But before it came to pass, he was thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, locked in prison. For years, it seemed as if his prayers were unanswered. But in the silence, God was working. In the silence, His character was being refined. His faith was being shaped. His destiny was being shaped. And at the right time when he was ready, the silence was broken and he was elevated to the place he was always meant to be. Silence does not mean that God is done with you. It does not mean that he has changed his mind. It simply means that there is something he is preparing that you are not yet ready to see. If he spoke too soon, you might not understand. If he moved too quickly, you might not be able to handle it. So he waits. And in the waiting, he is watching. Watching how you respond. Watching if you will trust him. Watching if you will remain faithful when there is no answer. The challenge for many people is that they mistake silence for distance. They assume that if God is not speaking, he must not be near. But silence is often the clearest proof that he's closer than you think. When you are in the middle of a storm, you do not always hear the wind, but you feel its impact. In the same way, you may not hear God's voice, but you can feel his presence. You can see his hand guiding your steps. You can sense his peace even when things do not make sense. So hold on, stay faithful. Trust the process. Because what God is doing in you is far greater than what has been taken from you. Your best days are still ahead.